Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, plain and simple study of the entire Bible, book by book, and chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. We're currently in 2 Samuel chapter 14. We're going to try to get through chapters 14 and 15, but certainly we'll probably get into chapters 15. But anyway, if you go back and you remember David's sin with Bathsheba, it was an awful time in David's life. He not only committed adultery, but he committed murder. One of the judgments that God pronounced on David, that he said that there will always be conflict, even within his own house. And we begin to see this last time when Absalom, when Amar, his son, there's a lot of baby mama drama in David's life. This is what happens, of course, when you have multiple wives. Never good. But as a result, David had many children by different baby mamas. Okay? And so, one of this, it was that his son Amar, who at the time loved his sister and then raped her. And when he raped her, he treated her worse than the rape itself. That triggered her brother by another mother, Absalom, eventually ended up murdering Amnon. So he's been in exile all this time. And so what we're going to begin to see is Absalom's rise to fall. Okay, so let's chapter 14, verse 1. It says, Joab, son of Zeruiah, observed that the king's mind was on Absalom. So Joab sent someone to Dotika to bring a clever woman from there and told her, pretend to be in mourning, dress in mourning clothes, and don't put on any oil. Act like a woman who has been in mourning for the dead for a long time. Go and speak to the king these words. Then Joab told her exactly what to say. And when the woman from Tekoa came to the king, she fell with her face to the ground in homage and said, help me, my king. What is the matter? The king asked her. Now, David doesn't know and that he is being played. But in some respect, depending on how you want to look at it, it could be for a good reason. He says, tell the truth. I'm a widow. My husband has died. She said, your servant had 2 sons. They were fighting in the field with no one to separate them. And one struck the other and killed him. Now, the whole clan had risen up against your servant and said, hand over the one who killed his brother so we may put him to death for the life of his brother he murdered. We will destroy the heir. They will extinguish my one remaining ember by not preserving my husband's name or posterity on earth. And the king told the woman to go home, and I will issue a command on your behalf. Now, remember the last time this happened to David is when he, with this sin of Bathsheba, and Nathan the prophet came to him and told him a story that he kind of was clueless on until, he's going to pick up on it in a moment, but it's almost like David now is being played by these different stories when people want to appeal to the king. Okay. Verse 9, then the woman of Tekoa said to the king, my lord the king, may any blame be on me in my father's house, and may the king and his throne be innocent. Whoever speaks to you, the king said, bring him to me. He will not trouble you again. She replied, please, may the king invoke the Lord your God, so that the avenger of blood will not increase the loss, and they will not eliminate my son. As the Lord live, he vowed, not a hair of your son will fall to the ground. Then the woman said, please, may your servant speak a word to my lord the king. Speak, she said. Now, it's kind of interesting at this point. You can almost kind of think David's probably thinking, I granted this woman her request. Why is she not shutting up? Right? Verse 13, then the woman asked, Why have you devised something similar against the people of God? When the king spoke as he did about this matter, he has pronounced his own guilt. In other words, you kind of exposed yourself. The king has not brought back his own banished one. Now, the reason why she is being careful, because remember, she is speaking to the king. One, no one asked for her advice. Two, she's kind of, you could almost say, out of order for this sort of light rebuke here. Verse 14 again. It says, we will certainly die and be like water poured out on the ground, which can't be recovered. But God will not take away a life. He will devise plans so that one banished from him does not remain banished. Now therefore I've come to present this matter to my lord, the king, because the people have made me afraid. Your servant thought I must speak to the king. Perhaps the king will grant his servant this request. The king would surely listen in order to rescue his servant from the hands of this man who would eliminate both me and my son from God's inheritance. So your servant thought, may the words of my lord the king bring relief. For my lord the king is able to discern good and bad like the angel of God. May the Lord your God be with you. Then the king answered the woman, I'm going to ask you something, and don't conceal it from me. Now, the light bulbs have come on right now. Okay? He realized, okay, I've been played here. He said, let my lord speak. Let my lord the king speak. The woman replied. And the king asked, did Joab put you up to all this? And the woman answered, as you live, my lord the king, no one can turn to the right from the left, as the Lord lives, my lord the king, no one can turn to the right or the left from all my lord the king says. Yes, your servant Joab is the one who gave orders to me. He told your servant exactly what to say. Joab, your servant, has done this to address the issue indirectly. But my lord has wisdom, like the wisdom of the angel of God, knowing everything on earth. Then the king said to Joab, I hereby grant this request. Go bring back the young man, Absalom. Joab fell on his face to the ground in homage and praised the king. Today, Joab said, your servant knows I found favor with you, my lord the king, because the king has granted this request from your servant. So Joab got up and went to Gershon and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. However, the king added, he may return to his house, but he may not see my face. So Absalom returned to his house, but did not see the king. Now, it's kind of interesting. I don't know why David is kind of playing hardball here. In other words, if you've forgiven him, why not just say, okay, forgive him and then restore him? But anyway, verse 25, no man in all of Israel was as handsome and highly praised as Absalom. From the sole of his foot to the top of his head, he did not have a single flaw. And when he shaved his head, he shaved it every year because his hair got so heavy from him that he had to shave it off. He would weigh it. He would weigh the hair from his head, and it would be about 5 pounds according to the royal standard. Now, Absalom, of course, as with all David's son, and we're going to see this, enjoyed immense privilege, royal privilege, okay, as being David's son. You can imagine if he lived today, the kind of lifestyle, opulent lifestyle he would live in. The fact that he was also extremely handsome. He was very favored. But in some way, this is going to work against him because he's going to have an overflated view of his wisdom, his might, and everything else. Verse 27, 3 sons were born to Absalom, and a daughter named Tamar, who was a beautiful woman. Absalom resided in Jerusalem 2 years, but never saw the king. Then Absalom sent for Joab in order to send him to the king, but Joab was unwilling to come. So he sent again a second time, but he still wouldn't come. Then Absalom said to his servant, see, Joab had a field right next to mine, and he had the barley there. Go and set it on fire, set fire to it. So Absalom's servant set fire to the field. Then Joab came to Absalom's house and demanded, why did your servant set my field on fire? Look, Absalom explained to Joab, I sent for you and said, come here. I want to send you to the king and ask, why have I come back from Gershon? I'd be better off if I were still there. So now let me see the king. If I'm guilty, let him kill me. And Joab went to the king and told him. So David summoned Absalom, who came to the king and bowed down with his face to the ground before him, and the king kissed Absalom. Now, in some respect, Absalom is right. In other words, if you're going to forgive me, then forgive me. Don't forgive me and then kind of hang it over my life. Now, even though David didn't say anything, by not even allowing him in his presence, he was still hanging it over. But this won't be the end, unfortunately. All right, so in chapter 15, now remember, Absalom was the type of person that he was extremely handsome. We're also going to say he's extremely privileged, and in some respect, that is going to be the downfall. Verse 1 says, after this, Absalom got himself a chariot, horses, and 50 men to run before him. He would get up early and stand beside the road leading to the city whenever anyone had a grievance to bring before the king for settlement. Absalom called out to him and asked, what city are you from? If he replied, your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel. Absalom said to him, look, your claims are good and right, but the king does not have anyone to listen to you. He added, if only someone would appoint me judge in the land, then anyone who had a grievance or a dispute could come to me, and I would make sure he received justice. When the person approached and bowed down to him, Absalom reached out his hand, took hold of him, and kissed him. Verse 6. Absalom did this to all the Israelites who came to the king for settlement. So Absalom stole the heart of the men of Israel. Now, this is very shrewd. And if I was to say to someone, in terms of if I was running for office, this is certainly a tactic that I would employ. How do you steal the hearts of the people? That is the key. Now, obviously, we live in a democracy, so therefore, you have the privilege of voting. Or I should say, we have the privilege of voting, and elections are run, believe it or not, still on that basis. If you look at the previous elections we have had, you can kind of see this play out in there. For example, they say election turnouts are low. Well, that's because the candidates who are running haven't motivated the hearts of the people. Absalom applied something that was very shrewd, but in doing this, now keep this in mind, Israel is a theocracy. We're a democracy. There are no theocracies today. And as much as people try to say America is a theocracy, we're not. But there are plenty of dictatorships. And one of the things about dictatorships, and so Israel was both a dictatorship and a theocracy. And one of the things that if you, and I'm going to forgive this, but there was a line in the TV series The Wire, and one of the characters, Omar, basically said to those who were trying to take him out, he said, if you come for the king, you best not miss, right? And that is the thing with dictatorship. David was, one, he was king by God's providence. So that's going to be the first mistake of Absalom. Not understanding, not recognizing God put him in order. That's his first mistake. If you did not have that, Absalom certainly could have succeeded in overthrowing his father's kingdom. The other question is, why did Absalom have the gall to even want to overthrow his father's kingdom? Now, obviously, he had aspirations of his own. And okay, in other words, he thought, okay, I want to be king. I should be king. Now, where his failure, his misguided plans were that, again, not recognizing God put David in. But even he wouldn't have lasted long. You almost have to stop and think that Absalom was like Saul's, when Saul died, and then people were trying to, remember, keep his lineage going. And this is kind of another sad testament to David. And and by the way, and this is not going to be the only time that someone tried to usurp authority. His other brother, Adoniah, was going to try to take over the throne. The difference between Absalom and Adoniah is that Adoniah is he's not trying to overthrow David. He's just, well, David, Dad's getting ready to kill over, so I should immediately take it over. We'll get to that later on. Absalom, however, actually tried to kill his father. He's going to try to kill his father and take over the kingdom. That's bad. All right, I'm going to stop here and I'll pick it up in verse 7 when you come back with this attempted coup by Absalom. Okay, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Look, till next time, I will see you guys in chapter 15. Actually, yeah, chapter 15.